The Nintendo Switch, a console that was pretty good. I mean, you got to get that shit out of here. It's time for the Switch 2! Because for eons, we've been talking about the f***ing Switch Pro coming out, and we finally get the Switch 2. And I'm happy. Yes, the Nintendo Switch 2 got officially announced in January while I was, And in that announcement, they made an announcement that there's gonna be a Nintendo Switch 2 Direct in April. And I gotta say, they delivered a whole hour of information on just the Nintendo Switch 2. And I have to say, I've never felt more conflicted in my entire life. For a part of me, I am hugely excited that there is finally a brand new Nintendo Switch console coming out and that they are finally getting some of the biggest upgrades that I've been waiting for in so long. But on the other hand, there's also some things that were a little weird and a little concerning, if I'm going to be honest. But in this video, we're going to talk about everything that has to do with the Nintendo Switch 2 that got officially announced, including some stuff that they didn't actually reveal in the actual trailer. So, I'm not going to waste your time. Let's get to it. But let's start off very simple in the fact that we are getting a brand new Switch. I mean, this was kind of obvious. I mean, the original Switch was so successful, why would they want to change course? And at first glance, it really doesn't look like anything that special. I mean, it looks like a Switch. I mean, other than the colors changing, which I do like. I do like that it's black and then it has like the highlights under the joysticks. That is a nice little touch. But there's actually a lot of changes to this. And let's start with the device itself, because it's now rocking a 7.9-inch screen, which is much bigger than the current one that we have. And it does maintain the same thickness. So in other words, this is just an iPhone announcement. But rocking some good news, we actually have a better screen, not just a bigger one. We have a 1080p screen compared to the 720 that's on the current Switch. And apparently, this screen can handle 120 frames per second. Now, I'll be honest, I'm very skeptical about it actually maintaining 120 frames per second, but I guess we'll find out soon enough with games like Metroid Prime 4. And to the bad news, it's back to LCD screens. As someone who actually loved playing on the OLED and loved the vibrancy that it offered, yeah, going back to LCD is not going to be very great. But good news, again, it does actually come with HDR support on the screen, which actually should help with the visuals, especially when it comes to contrast. Now, it gets even better with the Switch 2 dock, because while the console is docked, you can have up to 4K resolution and even HDR support as well. It's even got a whole cooling system, which, aka single fan. That's how you know they're serious. Moving on to the Joy-Cons part, there's a couple changes, including the fact that we don't have rails to attach the actual Joy-Cons. We now magnetically attach. Now, they claim that the magnets are strong enough to not detach easily. I mean, you have to push a button to release them, apparently, which they better not, because I don't need another controversy for the Joy-Cons. I still remember the last one. Look at this. And look, Nintendo, I'm a generous man. You guys been there for me. So I'm going to give you a free console launch suggestion on the house. So just throw in a free stick of super glue. Nobody's going to complain about it. What, they go to court about it, asking what happened to the magnets? Hey, we gave you a free stick of super glue. Oh, what? The Joy-Cons don't come off? Well, you put too much super glue. But aside from the magnet shenanigans, I mean, they fixed the side buttons. Thank goodness. I mean, playing on a single Joy-Con, well, it already sucked. I mean, why would you do that? But if you are a real masochist, then fear not, because the SR and SL buttons are much larger. Thank goodness. The next feature, well, I'll just have the narrator take care of it.
The left and right sticks are now larger.
Oh, that's it? Oh, okay. Then we have the mouse controls. Yes, this was hinted in the original reveal trailer of the Switch 2, but now it's official that there is indeed a sensor on the side of the Joy-Con, and it is indeed an optical sensor for the mouse controls, which, to be honest, is something I kind of need to try out because it seems like an awesome feature, but how would it actually feel in practice? Because the Joy-Cons itself are pretty thin compared to an actual mouse, so like how would that actually feel? And it's not dedicated to just one Joy-Con. You can actually use both at the exact same time for certain games. And yeah, it's a little gimmicky, but again, it wouldn't be Nintendo if they put a feature that you wouldn't try at least once or twice and then forget about it. But hey, it could also turn out to be pretty well. I'm not going against it. The fact that you could use a mouse could actually be useful in a lot of games. I mean, we saw it in action with Civ 7, so it definitely would work wonderful. And for someone like me, I would love to have a mouse for like Football Manager on the Switch. That would actually be really awesome. Mario Maker 2. Why wouldn't I want a mouse for Mario Maker 2? That'd be awesome. Then they mentioned a bunch of minor features for the Nintendo Switch 2. I mean, the stand can almost do the splits. Godlike audio, apparently, and another USB-C port, which is actually pretty handy, especially like for tablet mode. There was no way to charge that thing while it was on that mode. Now we finally can. But then we move into the bigger stuff, starting with storage. I mean, the console storage is getting a massive upgrade from 32 gigabytes to 256 gigabytes, which, when you really think about it, is actually just okay. They make it seem like you can now store an insane number of games, which is true for the original Switch games. But with all these new features, Switch 2 games are going to be a bit more demanding, where they're going to need more storage space. I think there's already been reports that like Street Fighter 6 is already going to be like 50 gigabytes. So you can tell these are going to get big, which makes compatibility with the Express SD cards pretty good, because it means larger demanding Switch 2 games with the Express SD cards can get the transfer speeds that they need. And these Express SD cards can reach up to SATA SSD speeds, which is about 800 megabytes per second, which ideally should mean faster loading speeds and smoother transitions in game. And because they need the speeds from the new Express microSD card, the older microSD cards are no longer going to be compatible with the new Nintendo Switch 2. It's called the Switch 2, not the new Nintendo Switch. Then we have the addition of a microphone, which can only mean one thing. They can bring back those microphone mini games from Mario Party and voice chat. Yes, for the longest time, Nintendo had voice chat on their phone app. But finally, they decided to arrive into the 2010s and actually implement native voice chat with their new feature, Game Chat. Remember that mystery button on the right Joy-Con? Well, now it has a letter C, and that is used to activate Game Chat, which is not only to allow voice chat with your friends, but you can also screen share the game you are playing with others. And if that wasn't enough, how about we go back to the days of the Kinect and bring cameras back? $50? Pass. But the perks to having friends doesn't end there, because they brought back one of the best features from the Nintendo DS and 3DS era. Remember the days when one person would have a game on the DS with multiplayer and all you needed to do was go to DS Download Play and you could join in? Well, the future is now, because you can literally game share. A feature that literally allows you to share your compatible game locally without even needing others to actually have the game, which is excellent. Now, you need a Switch 2 to actually share the game itself, but you can share it to literally anyone, including Switch 1 users. You can even game share online, but that is exclusive to Switch 2 owners. But still, I mean, if it's as it sounds, that's great work, Nintendo. But I gotta try it. You telling me I can game share stuff right after showing me like 5 frames per second video footage? But overall, some fantastic features in general. Now, yes, a lot of these features were already leaked ahead of time, but they just felt a little too good to be true. I mean, it still sort of does when it comes to stuff like graphics, but them saying that like the Switch 2 is capable of a variable refresh rate, which will help prevent stutters and tearing in the visuals, that does cement a bit more confidence. But now, with the big features out of the way, we can actually tackle the exciting part, how the Switch 2 runs games and what games are actually coming to the console. Let's begin with the original Switch titles, because yes, the Switch 2 is backwards compatible with the Switch, so games will run on the new hardware with a few exceptions. However, some games will be updated for usage with the Switch 2, either adding in new features to the games or improving their overall graphics and performance. Games like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and even the upcoming Metroid Prime 4 all aim to improve the overall game experience graphically. Higher frames, better loading times, HDR, and etc. Games like Super Mario Party Jamboree and Kirby and the Forgotten Land will have these improvements, as well as new expansions to put these features to the real test. Then you have Pokémon ZA, which was an absolute shock that this got any sort of upgrade, and at the very least, it doesn't look annoying visually. I mean, there's still no excuses from Game Freak in terms of how it looks overall. They should be doing better considering that they make Pokémon, but I'm not going to talk about this any further. I'm tired of this argument. And from what they announced in terms of third-party titles, it's all looking very exciting. I mean, you have Cyberpunk 2077, Street Fighter 6, Bravely Default Remaster, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4, Elden Ring, Yakuza, Civ 7, and so many more, including Silk Song, existing for about 5 seconds. That's crazy. But the craziest of them all is Duskbloods, being a game from FromSoft that is completely exclusive to the Switch 2. Literally seeing this kind of game, not even on the hands of Sony, is a crazy sight to see that showcases Nintendo being serious. But of course, it wouldn't be a proper showcase if it was just third-party games. I mean, we need to see what Nintendo was cooking, and honestly, it was a lot less than anticipated. Of course, we already knew that Mario Kart was coming to the Switch 2, but now we not only know that the name of the game is called Mario Kart World, but also we now know that it is all completely connected into one map. Tracks are interconnected where you can go from one to the other, and you can pretty much explore throughout the off-roads of the track itself. A literal open world Mario Kart game. Plus, racing against 24 racers is still insane to think about, but I'm really hoping I don't get 24th. Then they announced the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour as a little free add-on game to learn and test out all the new features on the Switch 2. Only, it's not a free add-on game because it's not even fucking free, and now I don't want it. Then there is Drag Drive. No, it's not called Spy X Family. This game actually takes advantage of the new mouse features on the Joy-Cons, as you can perform moves and play in what is essentially hoops from Rocket League. But I do like the innovation, and I really wouldn't mind seeing more of this game as we get closer to its release. Then we get some big announcements, with us finally learning about Masahiro Sakurai's big project during his YouTuber days, Kirby Air Riders, a new game following the original Air Ride that was released way back on the GameCube days. Nothing was really shown, to be honest, but it is releasing this year, so it won't be long till we hear more, and it's very exciting. Then the whole event ended with a massive surprise. I mean, it was expected to everyone that we were going to get a brand new 3D Mario, which honestly, it's long overdue, but instead, we were introduced to a new 3D Donkey Kong title dubbed Bonanza. And at first I was a little disappointed by it because I'm not much of a fan of the Donkey Kong series outside of the plumber murdering days, but this game looks incredible. It's basically a new Mario Odyssey for Donkey Kong with so many exciting things happening. I mean, you're destroying stuff, you're digging through terrains, all the action, the characters, and it all looks so beautiful. Is this console really made by Nintendo? I mean, I gotta give them their flowers. All the first-party game, well, okay, most of the first-party game announcements were wonderful and fascinating, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want to play them all, which at the end of the day means the Direct was a huge success. They reminded us that the release date would be June 6th and revealed the normal box and the Mario Kart bundle, and ended what was basically a perfect presentation, a strong showcasing of the Nintendo Switch 2's capabilities and potential that had me over the moon and ready to pre-order the console as soon as possible. When the event ended, I was incredibly happy. I mean, I was genuinely filled with excitement. Then, as the minutes passed by, it hit me. What the f is the price of this thing? I mean, it was a little concerning that they didn't reveal the price in the event. I mean, they just f***ing dipped once the event was over. From various press releases about 10 minutes later, we learned that the cost would be $450. $450, which is pretty much what I expected. Yeah, I had a feeling that if the Switch really was going to be built with all these features, it would have to range between $400 and $450. It sounded like the price range that was about right. And I know that a lot of people are upset about the price going up from $100 in comparison to the Switch OLED, but again, this device is far more capable than the current Switch that we have right now. But then things start to get a bit questionable when we actually talk about the games themselves. Now, currently, the Switch games range is about $60 for their main titles, so it was expected that the game would make the jump to $70 since they would require more resources to make with all the new features and capabilities of the Switch 2. And for the most part, that is the case. The new Donkey Kong Bonanza is indeed listed at $70, and even some other games like Street Fighter 6 are still hitting the $60 mark. Then we get to Mario Kart hitting $80. Why the f is Mario Kart World costing $10 more than the $70 price? When you buy this game, you are getting just the single player and local experience, just like in the last one. You will very likely still need to buy the Switch Online to play online, so that's another $20 investment there. Not to mention, they're probably going to do paid DLC down the line, which is probably going to cost more money. So what's the point of increasing it by $10 more? I mean, you're just better off getting the Switch 2 bundle with Mario Kart because you save yourself $30, which 20 of those dollars could then be used for the Switch Online, so really it's just 10. When it comes to The Legend of Zelda, both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom each cost $10 for their upgrade, mainly because they're just graphical overhauls. Also good to know that there's full versions of the actual game, but they cost basically $10 of their normal Switch version. And it's important to note that Breath of the Wild doesn't come with its DLC. Yep, basically almost 8-year game doesn't come with its DLC. When it comes to Super Mario Party and Kirby Forgotten Land, those basically are treated as if they were DLC, so they are actually $20 upgrades. Nintendo Switch 2 welcome tour is $10. Nope. And then every other game is incredibly inconsistent. Like you have Cyberpunk 2077 being $70, which sounds about right. Yeah, Bravely Default being $40, which is insane that it's the same price as the 3DS version was. But overall, it's kind of within the range of $40 to $70, which I guess that's fine, as long as they're not hitting the freaking $80 that Mario Kart is hitting. And then we have the game key cards, which buckle up because this is my 5th time having to re-record this because they keep changing things. Basically, you are getting a physical game card, but there's no actual game in it. You still have to download the game, but basically the cartridge itself is the key that unlocks the ability to be able to play the game. But like I said, you have to do a complete download on your actual console in order to be able to play it. It's already confusing. It's annoying that this exists. There's a lot of debate as to why this is an option. It could easily be because apparently there's only 2 separate sizes for the actual game cartridges, which apparently there's only a 16 gigabyte size and a 64 gigabyte size for the actual cartridge. Maybe that makes sense, but then why is Bravely Default doing this? And at first I wasn't too worried about it. It only seemed like there were 2 games at the time that were going to do this, but apparently there's a whole list of games coming that are going to use the game key card. So great. I was barely able to get the 512 Express SD at an actual decent price. Now I got to go for a 1 terabyte, which I have to give a shout out to CD Projekt Red because Cyberpunk 2077 is fully on the cartridge. That's incredible. Good job, you guys. You somehow managed to actually turn one of the worst launches in gaming history into one of the best launches in gaming history. Then we move over to the amazing accessories. Yes, the amazing high quality accessories we saw in the presentation. How about that amazing Switch 2 camera, the innovation of video output at a mere $50? What's that? You could just plug in any compatible USB-C camera instead? Well, what about the brand new Switch 2 Pro controller with a custom buttons and a headphone jack priced at $80? Though it is enticing, you can thankfully use the previous Pro controllers on the original Switch. Thank goodness my Xenoblade 2 controller sees another day. But the majority of these accessories really don't feel too necessary to get, especially as a Switch owner. And I actually hope that I don't have to keep buying Joy-Cons because they keep screwing up. Though I will admit, of all the accessories, the Joy-Con 2 wheel is kind of tempting. I kind of want to get that. How about the technical side of things? Well, they did list the specifications for the most part, and it's pretty straightforward, except the battery life was explained here. And would you look at that? Between 2 to 6.5 hours. Uh-oh, that sounds awfully familiar for the very first Switch I had with shit battery. And it's even slightly less than the range for the Steam Deck's battery. However, it is important to note that when it comes to the specs, we can only really judge it once we actually get our hands on the Switch 2. From there, we'll be able to determine really if the battery is something to be concerned about, or even any of the other specifications of the Switch 2. And that's really what it comes down to with this console. Even from the official details by Nintendo, a lot of this seems both too good to be true and incredibly suspicious, because this is a massive jump for Nintendo. Is the console powerful enough? Is the pricing too out of whack? Are these features really worth the upgrade? And why are there still no themes? There is just absolutely no consistency with anything that's been talked about with the Switch 2. A lot of small text for a lot of their features, prices not even just matching up, they're kind of all over the place. Looking back, the presentation provided moments where they really jumped over a lot of important details or spent like 7 minutes over explaining simple chat features that should have existed already, and giving a whole section about how control sticks are bigger. Oh, a real game changer there. I think I'll buy the console now. But regardless, I'm still very excited for the Switch 2, okay? I'm excited to see what's in store, not just in the immediate future, but in the long road. You know, you wouldn't think a console launch would actually turn into a disaster, and somehow in the United States it actually turned into one. On the same day that the Switch 2 was announced, guess what else was announced? Tariffs. Because of tariffs that were put on other countries, there was a whole crisis about basically how much things are going to cost to ship over to the US, and that in itself was chaos. So Nintendo basically played it safe and canceled their plans for pre-orders, at least until further notice, which a couple weeks later, when tariffs were still bad, they decided to put it up with a couple of changes. Thankfully, the console itself was not changed in price. What was changed were a lot of the accessories. They weren't really changed by that much, just about $5 to $10, but yep, they're more expensive, and they were already expensive. But I don't want to talk about that. It was hell through all that. And in the end, we ended up getting our pre-order date, and per usual with a console launch, it was shit. The big stores made this whole thing about they were ready for the Nintendo Switch 2. You had Target, Walmart, Best Buy, not Amazon, GameStop. Yeah, they said they were ready. And then the time happened. A lot of them went up on midnight Eastern time, which was 9 o'clock here in the Pacific. And what do you know? Everything crashed. Target had their website just crashed the whole time, so I was really focused on going in Best Buy and Walmart. Oh boy, they were both terrible. Walmart had a line. Basically, you were kind of just waiting there and nothing really happened. It never changed. I never got my Switch there. Then Best Buy was 20 minutes late to the party. They actually did a line as well, and well, I didn't get shit. So at the end of the night, guess what? I didn't get a Switch 2, which leads me to giving a shout out to each of the stores for the great work they put in their pre-orders. Hey Target, you f***ing blind because you actually missed aiming to keep the website up. Best Buy, more like buy yourself a suitcase and pack it up. You could have done a whole pre-order for the Fortnite download codes on the Nintendo Switch and you would have still f***ed it up. GameStop, how about you? Oh, sorry, I had my computer hooked up to your servers. And as for Walmart, f***ing Walmart, I didn't think I would give you guys praises because I didn't get it that night, but somehow, literally the day after, I ended up getting a Switch 2 from Walmart. How did I do that? So yeah, at the end of everything, I ended up pre-ordering the Nintendo Switch 2. I had mentioned this already. I was gonna get it regardless. For me, the Nintendo Switch 2 is actually really interesting. It's the first time Nintendo's actually trying to keep up with the times for once. And it's gonna be really interesting to see the comparisons between that and even like something like the Steam Deck or any of the Windows portable PCs that there are out there. But at the end of the day, I am excited. I'm extremely excited. And a lot of people are definitely excited. And it kind of shows that the pre-orders genuinely sold out incredibly quick. And hopefully we're not in a state where it's going to be incredibly difficult to find this, similar to how the PS5 was insanely difficult to find. And hopefully Nintendo can actually live up to the expectation that they've currently set. It's sounding like everything's being pretty exciting. A lot of the things in the background are a bit concerning, but if they can hold things down and actually perform really well in terms of their first-party games and even be able to lock down a lot of third-party titles for this, that'll really be enticing, and continue to support indie games, aside from the very suspicious ones on the eShop, then who knows, maybe the Switch 2 can actually be successful. Or they fail to live up to their expectations and it's a total failure. That's also possible.